Welcome back to another edition of Gong Show Fantasy Hockey. So last night there was some games. Tonight's a very light schedule, so maybe we'll get into a little bit of tonight. But last night, just notables from last night. Arizona Marco Carconi scored a hat trick and an assist. He's a 27-year-old rookie, I guess. So if you're looking for a guy, Coyotes do have a good schedule. If you feel like riding a hot hand, take a look. The Stars, I keep going on and on about Wyatt Johnston. He got a goal and an assist last night, I believe. So he's going to be a draft day steal. I can't speak highly enough about him. He's fantastic. Like I mentioned in the last couple pods, I'm going to be possibly trying to trade for him. Hopefully it's not too late. But yeah, I want him on my team. As many teams I can get, actually. So other games, the Ducks, McTavish is having a great season so far. Absolutely awesome season. He had a game winner last night as well, a couple points. The other games, Flyers, I kept telling you not to worry about Tippett. Tippett's fine, and now he's starting to come around. Wings, the top line is slowed down quite a bit. Larkin and DeBrincat, but they'll be fine. Just a dry spell. Other notables last night, Bruins won, Kraken won, Rangers won. Look out for Cheadle on the Rangers, actually. So he's maintaining that good deployment. So something to keep an eye on there. And the Knights, Cotter again on the second line got a goal. So a lot of stuff happened last night. But tonight is a very, very slow schedule. If I just look here, there's only 2 games. So Preds and Canucks, Kings and Leafs. If you have Wall, you're starting him. I'd even consider starting Talbot here if you needed to start. I feel like the Kings might come away with a win here, but we'll see. And Canucks and Predators, both goalies. I believe it's Demko and Soros going tonight, so I don't think you'll be getting into any goalies there. Even if it's the backups, I don't like the backups on either team, to be honest with you, versus their opponents. So I'd avoid that. But maybe Talbot's 51% owned. Maybe you can take a look at that. Okay, so because tonight is such a light schedule, there's really no reason talking about it. But I do want to get into some 50% owned players and under that I think they should be owned, or guys to not worry about, etc., stuff like that. So honorable mentions, we'll start at 52% here. Troy Terry is at 52%. He might be available in your leagues. He has 5 points right now. I know it's had a slowish start, but his shots are still there. I would not be worried about Troy Terry. Right now, it's the other line doing everything. McTavish and Strome and who's on that other line? McTavish, Strome, and that's going to bug me now. Okay, we'll see if we can get back to it. Oh, Vetrano, sorry. Yeah, that's those 3 guys are really tearing it up. But this Terry line is going to come around. So I'm seeing a buy low opportunity on Troy Terry. Listen, I know, and you can get him for pretty much nothing. Or hopefully an owner in your league dropped them. Because Anaheim does have a great schedule. So if you can write it out a little bit, Troy Terry's going to be fine. He'll still have around 30 goals. It's coming. He's a good player. Zegras I'd be more worried about, to be honest. But Troy Terry's fine. His shots are good. Everything's good. Another guy is Boone Jenner. He was 51% owned. So I want Boone Jenner on my team. I know he doesn't get the points, but if you're in a cat league, 51% owned, plus on Yahoo, he's center winger, that's massive. So I'd want Jenner on my team. So those are the 2 guys that are above 50% that I wanted to mention. Now, if we go to below 50% guys, Terry and Jenner both have 5 points each. Yeah, so now we're getting into the 50% and under owned. So there's a lot of guys here. So you have Brian Russ, this is Yahoo, by the way. Brian Russ, Tom Wilson, Josh Norris, Michael Bunting, Chandler Stevenson, Kadri's 49%. So it goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of great players that are in the 50% owned and under range. Out of this, I think the 50% owned are, I think in your league they'll be taking. I'm not sure why they're 50%. Maybe some leagues are like 8-team or 10-team leagues. But most leagues are 12 teams. So These guys might be taken, but out of this, Josh Norris at 50% owned is criminal. Josh Norris, I know he's got that injury scare, but he should not be 50% owned. So if Josh Norris is on your wire, you need a center, especially if you have face-offs. He's on power plays. He's got a great line. There's no reason Josh Norris should be 50% owned. That's criminal. Guys like Rust, okay, Rust had a hot start. If you want to stream him, that's fine. I can't see Rust being a permanent member of my teams on a 12-team league. But Josh Norris is 50% owned. That's criminal. He has to be owned higher. So if he's on your wire and you need a center, grab him. There's also Chandler Stevenson, 49%. I think I would. He's not a must-own. He had a hot start, but he'll still finish around, I don't know, 60 points, 65-ish. But Josh Norris is the guy. Mason McTavish is 40%, 7% owned. I think this guy's really starting to come around. He's got 11 points right now. And he's shooting a bunch, takes face-offs. So this guy is a must-own. We're in must-own territory now for a 12-team league, especially because he has center winger designation. So that's huge that you can have that dual position. Another guy in the... Let's go actually to lower than 40% because I think most of these guys might be owned. Check your league though. But out of the guys that are in that 50 to 40% range, I would say Norris and McTavish, and with an honorable mention to Lucas Raymond. Raymond, it all depends if he keeps that deployment. But those guys are all between 47 and 50% owned. So in that order, Josh Norris, Mason McTavish, and Lucas Raymond. And Norris for sure should be on your team if he's on the wire. The deployment and his skill level, I can't believe he's 50% owned. Maybe it's an injury scare. People are scared he's going to get hurt again, but I don't know. If he gets hurt, just put him on your IR. I don't know why he wouldn't be owned. I know center's deep, obviously, but still, it's Josh Norris. He'll be fine. And the defenseman in the 44% owned is John Klimberg. I know he only has 5 assists, but he's still getting that good deployment. So if you're looking for a long-term D, as long as he keeps that spot, that I'd be totally comfortable with picking up him. In deeper leagues, center position, Pavel Zacha is 41% owned. He had a very slow start. But he's come on. He's come on recently. And I think they moved him to the wing the last game. They had Matty Potra between him and Pasternak. So Zacha, if he plays enough games there, he might get that center winger dual position eligibility, which would be huge. And like I said, he's starting to come along. I'm not sure who's taking the face-offs, with him or Potra. I'm guessing Zacha still would take the face-offs, but you just have to keep an eye out for that. But another deeper league is 40% owned is Tyler Bertuzzi. I know he had a rough start, but he's still getting pretty good deployment, and I think he's hurt. So if he gets a little bit healthier, so he's a watch list guy. Like just keep him on your radar. Check his Leaf scores every now and then and see how he's doing and where he's playing. But he's not a must own or anything. He's just right now. I'd leave him there. Just watch list guy. Owen Tippett's 39% owned. 39% owned, like I said. He's starting to come around. I kept telling you not to worry about Tippett. He's fine. He's taking lots of shots. Now he's up to 6 points. So if he has one multi-point game, he's getting up there. You know what I mean? He's right where you think he would be. Like I said in the very beginning of this podcast, he's still going to end up with 30 goals around there. So and 60-something points, and he shoots a ton. So, like if you know my strategy, I always look for guys that shoot and are on power play. Ideally, power play 1, but those are the 2 categories I go for first, and then I wither it down to individual categories depending on what's in your league. Nick Schmaltz is 39% owned. Nick Schmaltz should be owned in all formats. He's stapled to Keller on line 1 and power play 1. I don't know how he's only 39% owned, but if he's out there, add him ASAP. That's criminal. I know he doesn't shoot a lot, but just for the line and deployment alone, and he's got center winger dual eligibility, he has to be owned. Like, has to. Okay. So now we're into the 38% rostered and lowered category here. Bowen Byram's 38%. He's on your watch list until if Makar is healthy all year, Byram to me, unless you're in a deeper league, I'm not interested. Nick Paul is 37% owned. He's had a great start, but ultimately he's going to be a streamer. He's going to cool off sooner or later. It's Nick Paul. And other guys in the 30-ish% range, if you're looking for face-offs and shots, there's Michael Backlund. I know center's pretty deep, but he is there. Dylan Strome is also only 33% owned. I know he doesn't have the greatest schedule this week, but it's criminal that this guy is not owned more. He's line one, power play one. Washington turned it around when they moved him up to the top line and top power play. So he should definitely be owned. Definitely. I know center is a deep position, but if he sticks to that deployment, he's going to have a great year. And Washington hasn't even done anything special yet, but they'll turn it around. They still have Ovi. They're going to score. For a deeper league, center again. You notice how we always tell you to fade centers? Look, all these guys I'm listing are 33, 34 to 30, 40%, 50% owned. They're all centers. Look at the next guy, Kotkaniemi on Carolina. He's had a great year. He's got 10 points right now, only 33% owned. So you can pick up a center on your wire at any point in the year that will get you 60, 65 points. This is why we fade centers if we can, people. Almost everybody I listed was a center. Johansson's another center. He's only 31% owned. He had a good start. If he sticks with that deployment and of Rantanen especially, but on the first power play, if you have faceoffs in your league, this guy's a must-own for you. I know there's only 31%, but if you have faceoffs, I feel 100% comfortable as this being my second or third center. Maybe not second, but third center for sure. Mercer's on the wire for most leagues. He's 31% owned, and he's going to stay there. Even in deeper leagues. Until he shows you something, you keep him there. I'm not falling for that. I don't even think he has any shots. What does he have? Maybe 6 or 8 shots in all the games combined? I don't know what's happened to this guy. It's more than just deployment. I don't know if he's lost his confidence or what, but it's not great. One guy here, here's another almost a must-own category, is Nikolai Ehlers is only 30% owned. So that's really, really, really low. I know a lot of people say, well, he hasn't done much and he always gets hurt. Yes, I know, but the reason me and a lot of guys in the fantasy hockey world like him is that his skill level is through the roof. His skill level is absolutely through the roof, and he's finally getting that deployment. So this is his chance. For me, this is his chance. This is my last attempt of Ehlers, because Velarde's out. He's getting the deployment. Do something now, or forever you're out of my life. Gone. See you later. So, but like I said, he's got all the skill in the world. Let's see what happens. But 30% owned, and he's a winger. I definitely take a shot on him. So now we're into the 20s, okay? So now we're getting into deeper leagues. So what I like in the 20s is Ryan O'Reilly is 27% owned. So that's pretty low. He takes a lot, especially if you're in a face-off league or blocks and stuff. He takes a lot of face-offs. He gets some shots. He gets some points. He gets some power play. He's a decent category guy overall for being only 27% owned, right? Another guy in that 20-something% owned is Pacioretty. He's on the IR, so you should be stashing him because I think he'll come back sooner rather than later. Another criminal one. See what I'm talking about? Centers, guys. Couturier, center, 26% owned, 8 points, 94 face-off wins, 20 shots. Massive. And 26% owned. This is why you fade centers. I keep telling you that's why most people recommend fade center, because as you go down the list, there's tons of centers. You have Kuznetsov at 25%. He had a slow start. He's still getting his face-offs. He's getting shots, maybe 2 a game-ish. So that's pretty good. A deeper league defenseman, if you're looking. Now we're getting into real deep leagues here. Mikey Anderson in LA. He's been hot lately. He's got 7 points, actually. It doesn't take a lot of shots, but 7 points, that's not bad for a 23% owned defenseman on the Kings. The Kings score a lot. Another center, a 23% owned, Rob Thomas. He only has 5 points, but you'd think he'd end up around 70 points for the year, give or take. And that's a center. He doesn't shoot like at all, but he does take face-offs if you're looking for that. I would say Sam Bennett, he's only 23% owned, but he got hurt again last night. So if you had him and you put him in, you got maybe, I don't even know, 8 minutes out of him, and he was gone. Poor guy, man. He just can't seem to stay healthy. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not a long-term thing, but he's going back on my IR. He's one of those guys where if he comes back in time and you're making a playoff push or in the playoffs, he's a great stats coverage. If you can squeeze him on IR plus if you have it, or IR, whatever the case is, I definitely hang on to him there. Obviously, if you don't have any of those spots, you're going to have to drop. It is what it is. A 21% owned guy I like is Erik Haula. Now, this is all depending on what happens with Nico Hischier, because Erik Haula is the next man up. He's got 5 goals, 6 points, 48 faceoff wins, 19 shots. He's pretty good stats coverage guy all around. So this is this is a watch list guy. Definitely a watch list guy. Just keep an eye on what happens with Nico, my boy Nico. He's had a rough start to the year too, that guy. But hopefully. And look, there's my guy, Wyatt Johnston, 20% owned. Now, this 20% owned is really, really low. And I know that because I play in a lot of pretty competitive leagues. And almost every one of my leagues that are 12-team, he's owned. But Yahoo still says he's only 20%. So this, to me, is the most criminal thing. It might even be more criminal than Norris, to be honest with you. Wyatt Johnston's fantastic. He's a great player, especially in a keeper league or something. He's a must-own. So 20% is really, really, really low. All it takes is for him just to maybe get just a tiny bit better deployment, and we're talking a breakout year. So I keep preaching Wyatt Johnston, but I keep saying it because I believe in him that much. And like I said, 20% owned. And guess what? He's a center. Center only. So the centers, we don't have to worry about the centers, guys. We don't have to worry about the centers. Another defense. No, actually, he just got hurt, actually. I was going to recommend OEL. He's only got 3 points, but he does still have good deployment, but he took a concussion. I think he got a concussion against the Bruins, so we're going to leave him out for now. We'll see what just keep an eye on the injury report there. Now we're into the teens, okay? So we're getting there. We're getting in deeper leagues here. One guy that sticks out to me is Casey Middlestat, 16% owned, 7 points. He takes some faceoffs. It doesn't take a lot of shots, but he is playing with Skinner, and that seems to be pretty consistent. So I would definitely keep an eye on him. And if you're looking for D, there's Dylan DeMello on Winnipeg, good stats coverage guy, and he is only 15% owned. So you see, there's a lot of players. If we're willing to look, there's a lot of players that are in the teens and even 20 and 30% owned that should be at very worst streamable. You know what I mean? Another defenseman, great stats coverage guy. He got a couple goal and assists last night. Is Jake Wallman on Detroit. He fills a lot of categories. He's on the top pairing with Sider as of last night, I believe. Still, and he's only 13% owned. So if you're in a deeper league and need a D, Wallman is 13% owned. And to give you an idea, look, the 3 guys I was talking about, Norris, Wyatt Johnston, Jacob Wallman here, they're all low owned in Yahoo leagues. But in most of my 12-team leagues, all of them are owned. And they're only on Yahoo, they're saying they're 13 and 20 and 50% owned. In competitive leagues, these guys are owned. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Another great D option is on Anaheim, only 12% owned. Pavel Mintyukov, he's their guy. He's their defenseman now. He's their guy. He's their stud as of right now. He's got 6 points, 15 shots. He's only 12% owned. So that's a great D ad if you're looking. 11% owned, Ryan Graves, great stats coverage guy. He's not going to get you a lot of points. He only has 2 points, but good for hits, block shots, stuff like that. He's a block shot monster last time I checked, and he's only 11%. So this is why when we're drafting, because now we're about 10 games into the season, when we're drafting, this is why my strategy is always look for guys that shoot a lot, right? Because shooting obviously logically leads to goals. So then now you got a guy that shoots a lot and theoretically will score a lot. And then to do that, to shoot a lot and score a lot, you probably need to be on a bare minimum the first power play. So I'm looking for guys when I'm drafting. And this is how you parse it down to your league. You go, this is the way I do it. Maybe other guys do it different, but I look for guys that shoot a ton, in turn get a lot of goals, and are on a power play unit. Hopefully the first. So it's deployment, shooting, and goals. And then based on your league categories, like if you have hits or blocks or whatever, or plus minus, or plus minus shouldn't be a category, but fine, whatever it is. And then out of the guys of the that have the most shots, goals, whatever, then you start weeding down. Okay, out of these guys, who hits the most, or who like, don't go for just blocks or hits when you're drafting. You need goals and shots are the hardest thing to find in any Yahoo, in any, not just Yahoo, in any fantasy hockey. So you're first and foremost, you're going for shots, goals. And to get shots and goals in the numbers you want, they need to be on the first power play, or worst case on the second power play. They need to be on a power play. And then you splice it down into your individual categories of those guys. That's how I draft. It's worked out really well for me over the years. So just a little tidbit of advice for next year. I really wish I would have started this pod in your draft season, but I just didn't have time. Next year for sure. I'm already excited for it. Now we're into the 10% and less owned. Another center, guys. Filip Chytil, 10% owned. He only has 6 assists, but he's starting to get his good deployment. So that's a watch list guy for sure. If you're in a banger league, another center, Scott Laughton. He's got 6 assists, 6 points, takes a lot of face-offs, hits, blocks, all that good stuff. 9% owned. Right? Kyle Palmieri, winger for the Islanders. 9% owned, 7 points. He's on the, I guess, theoretically the top line, or could be whatever. He's on the top 2 lines. Their first and second line are pretty similar, I'd say. But he's on the first power play, and he's stuck there. And he's only 9% owned. So there's a lot of value here late. So, and like I said, a lot of these guys are center only. So fade centers. Never forget the fade centers. Another guy is only 8% owned is Barrett Hayton. Can you believe this guy does not have a point? I think they're 9 games in. He has 0 points. Unbelievable. And Cooley hasn't done much better either, but I still think, I've been saying it since day one, Cooley needs to be on that top line. It's getting frustrating watching what they're doing with Cooley. They need that Cooley on the top line with those 2 guys. Hayton doesn't have a point. There's got to be some positive regression coming. So he's center only. He's only 8% owned. His minutes are pretty good still. Like, he plays good minutes. So look, now we're into 8% owned, and you can still get, I know, like I said, he doesn't have a point yet, but man, you can get Barrett Hayton at 8% owned right now. Another 7% guy, another center, is because we know what happened with Shane Pinto. The guy's smashing bets or whatever happened with there, who knows. Ridley Greig is his replacement. He's got 7 points, takes faceoffs. He's pretty much paired with Tarasenko. There you go, center. There's tons of options available. Matthew Potras on Boston, center, 7% owned, 5 points, 3 goals. He's now playing with Pasta. So this might be 7%. After a couple games, this could jump to like 30% very, very fast. So just keep a watchful eye on Potra. Another center. See what I was talking about centers? Thomas Novak, center, 7% owned. 7%. 6 points, 4 goals. So there's lots of available guys here. If you're looking for a winger, you have Matthias Michelli, 6% owned, 6 points. And then we're into deeper league territory now, obviously. But another guy, a winger, Marcus Johansson, 6% owned, 6 points. He's on the first power play in Minnesota. Right? There's tons of streamable options here. Tons and tons and tons. Daniel Sprong, 6% owned, winger of Detroit. The guy's got 7 points. He scored again last night. He takes a lot of shots. He's one of the guys the hockey nerds love. 6% owned. He doesn't get a lot of ice time, but he's one of those guys that makes a lot with a little. He's like a Kaliev almost, right? He doesn't get the best deployment, but still finds a way to produce. Another guy, here's the watch list guy for sure, is Bobby Brink on Philly. He's only 6% owned. He's got 6 points. And his deployment has been really good as of late. So that's a watch list guy. And even if you have, we got to check out the Flyers guys. We went over it yesterday, the day before, about setting up this week. Bobby Brink, Philly has a great schedule. So we're talking Bobby Brink, Owen Tippett, Cam Atkinson, Sandheim if he's there, Scott Lawton, depending on your league categories, right? So Philly was our number one choice for this week for streaming. Now we're into 5% and less. Okay, Alex Iafallo, 5%. He has 4 points. He's on top line and top power play as of yesterday, I believe. So there you go. 5%. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty here. Who can we find that's under 5%? You got Kirill Marchenko. Man, I had hopes for this guy. He's not shooting it like he did last year. He's only got 3 assists, 0 goals though. You have to think that's going to improve. This guy's probably going to end up at 25 goals. So right now it's 5%. It'll probably climb. The entire Jackets team the first lines aren't really doing much. It's everything's coming from the bottom 2 lines, but you think that 5% will raise. Who else could we find here that's under 4%? You have Mario Ferrero, good stat coverage guy on San Jose. But yeah, you know what? I told myself I cannot recommend any San Jose guys. So I guess if you need blocks, go there's Mario Ferraro. Look, 4%. This is why you don't chase blocks in the draft. You chase everything. You chase goals and shots, and then look for guys who block within those categories, like I was saying before. But anyways, Tolvanen on Seattle. Now that Burakovsky's hurt, he's going to get a bump in ice time, most likely. I believe he's on one of the top power plays because their power plays are pretty even. He's 4% owned, 4 points, and Burakovsky's gone for a long time. If you're in a keeper league, a deep keeper, Byfield 4% owned. He's got 4 points. He's got good deployment. There you go. Another guy 4% owned, center again. See, another center. Cole Perfetti 6 points. He's not getting the ice time yet, but if that ice time ever gets up there. He's going to be good. He's a good player. So these are all guys to watch. So keep an eye on all these guys I'm talking about. Click them on your little watch list thing, and just keep an eye. The one guys I would say are Josh Norris and Wyatt Johnson. One of them's 50% owned. One of them's 20% owned. They should both be owned, unless you're in like an 8-team league or something. But that's it for players that I see that I like here. Now we're in the 3% owned here now. So there's one guy there, 2% owned, Tyler Radish. So if you're in a really deep league, he's getting good deployment. There you go. And I think that's it. I'm just checking here, just checking along here. A deep league, 1% owned is Philip Di Giuseppe on Vancouver. I think he's getting good deployment still, playing 15 minutes. 1% owned. So in your deep league, you can take a flyer on him tonight, actually. There you go. And Alexander Holtz on the Devils. If this is another one of those, keep an eye on Nico Hischier, depending on how long he's out for, but Holtz's minutes should go up. Holtz and Mercer, but I can't bring myself to recommend Mercer. Sad, man. It's sad. He's a great player, but I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. Okay, let's get into goalies now. Cam Talbot, 52% owned. Starting goalie for the Kings. That's a good team. That guy should be owned. It's not Copley, it's Talbot. 52%. So he might or might not be on your wire. But if you're one of those 0G guys and Talbot is still there, go grab him. Vejmelka, 52% owned. I know Ingram had a good game last game, but that was against Chicago. Vejmelka, to me, is still the better goalie. He got shelled by the Kings the last game, but that wasn't his fault. If you watch that game, the Zona didn't come out in the third period to play at all. They just did not come out to play. And Vejmelka was actually really great that game. He's got a 926 save on the year, Vejmelka, by the way. So he's a good goalie. The Coyotes need to get better defensively a little bit. Like against, you see the skill when they're playing Chicago, because Chicago's not a great team. But LA, they held them for 2 periods. They looked fantastic. And the third period, you just let it get away. But anyways, I remember it so vividly because I had Vimelka started in some of my leagues, so that's why it's just burned in my memory. Um, Akira Schmid still only is 39% owned. His ownership is dropping like a rock. It was 58% at one point. It looks like Vanacek might have took the number one job, but can you really trust Vanacek? I don't know. So he's another watch list guy, right? Because I don't think he'd want to. If Vanacek has a number one job for now, I don't think it's worth rostering Schmid in the hopes, to be honest with you. So I can see why people are dropping him. John Gibson got hurt last night. He's 35% owned. But in its wake, you can get Dostal. I think he's like 8% maybe. So we're going to check as we go down here. So just keep an eye out for Gibson if how hurt he is or not. Grubauer's 32% owned. It looked like Decord took his job as of right now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Decord has looked pretty good. So that looks to be like a timeshare committee thing there. So, and I really like a Seattle timeshare is not something I'm interested in. If Grubauer is getting volume, then I'd be interested in it. But a Seattle team timeshare, I don't want to touch it. Merzlikins only 31% owned. He's the guy in Columbus. They're not the greatest team, but he is getting volume, and he's 31% owned. Campbell is 28% owned for the Oilers. That's another timeshare situation. So if you have Skinner, maybe you might want to handcuff him if you see Campbell there. Because Skinner is no guarantee that he's hanging on to that job. Oh, there he is. I just missed him. Lucas Dostal, 9% owned. If Gibson is hurt for a while, Dostal's the guy. He's going to get tons and tons of volume, and Anaheim is actually showing that they're competing. Anaheim. Dostal has 4 wins already. He's 4-1 with a 921 save at 9% owned, and he's going to get the volume if Gibson is out. So that's something to definitely keep on your radar. Is Lucas Dostal at 9% owned? That's not going to stay at 9%. It just won't. There's Connor Ingram at 9%. That's a timeshare in Phoenix right now, in Arizona. I still think Vejmelka is the better goalie, but I think it'll be a timeshare situation. They started Ingram against Chicago because I think that was they gave him the easier start, to be honest. But he's only 9%. Joey Decord, Seattle, 6%. That's a Seattle timeshare I'm not interested in. There also is guys like Spencer Knight, 5%. If something happens to Bobrovsky, this guy's ownership is going to go to 60%. So, because he's clearly the guy there, but he's NA, so I don't think you can get anyone on your NA. Dustin Wolf is 4%. Keep an eye on Dustin Wolf because Markstrom hasn't looked the greatest. Vladar is not the guy. They're eventually going to trade Vladar, and Wolf is going to be backing up Markstrom. And potentially, because Calgary wants to win, so if Wolf comes up and plays great, they'll be starting him over Markstrom. This isn't Daryl Sutter loyalty to Markstrom. If Markstrom's not playing great and Wolf is, and Wolf's up and Wolf plays great, they'll start Wolf over Markstrom. I don't care about the salary. They will. So that's watch list guy for me is Dustin Wolf. One last goalie to keep an eye on is only 3% is Joel Hofer. On St. Louis. St. Louis is not a good team, but this is a great goalie by all accounts. And Binnington is crazy, so who knows? He might punch someone and be gone for 10 games. So who knows what to expect, but Joel Hofer has a great pedigree, great goalie. All right, so that's it. That's all your owned guys that I'd be targeting based on your league settings, right? And how big your league is. So we went through all the players. There's tons and tons of players available. So keep an eye on, and listen, if there's guys that are higher owned for whatever reason that are on your wire, go with those guys. Like don't, this is just on one of my leagues or a couple of my leagues, what they're, you know what I mean? There might be, maybe there's a guy in your league that's 80% owned and available on the wire. Grab him instead. So if he's good. So there's lots and lots and lots of great players for tonight. Not just tonight, but for in general, right? For depending on your league settings. So lots of guys to add. And now we'll get, because tonight's a light night, so we just thought we'd go over some ownership percentages that I thought. But ultimately, it's Norris, Wyatt Johnson, And who was the other guy? Norris and Johnson stick out to me the most that I remember going down to it. They should be both owned higher. Tonight, if you're looking for money line picks, I'm going to go Canucks and Kings. I feel like the Kings will come out strong with a good road game today. Leafs have been hot lately. Wool's been hot lately. So, not that it'll come to an end. I think ultimately Wool's a great goalie, but I can see the Kings winning in OT here. That's just a pure gut feeling. My picks have been pretty good for the last month or so, so I'd consider them. I'm going to be betting on the Kings and the Canucks. All right, thanks a lot.